Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the Falls Township Zoning Hearing Board. If we could all please rise, salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. I'll start with some board introductions of who we have here and who we have on Zoom. To my far left is Al Brooks. To my immediate right here is Lainey Strylick. On Zoom, we have Bill Kiernan and our solicitor tonight from Bidlingmeyer. Bidlingmeyer is Keith Bidlingmeyer. We do have a four-person panel tonight. So if anybody would like to request to continue, obviously a 2-2 vote would be de facto denied. Denial for it wouldn't be approved if we voted to deny, so, or approve. That being said, we have a couple letters for request of continuance for some matters on tonight. The one is for petition number 3, which is Britton Realty of Morrisville, requesting a continuance. Sorry about that. Let me grab the date for next meeting. It's the 13th? For December 13th. Someone like to make a motion to continue the petition for Britton Realty of Morrisville to the December 13th meeting.
Dan, I'll make that motion to continue for the next meeting, December 13th.
Great. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Bill's muted, but it looks like he did agree. Okay. We also received a letter from, for the petition number 4 at Oak Village at New Falls Road, requesting a continuance until the December 13th meeting. Also, they couldn't make tonight's meeting, so we had someone out of the country. So would someone like to make a motion to continue petition number 4, Oak Village at New Falls Road to the December 13th meeting?
Dan, I'll make that motion to continue Oak, was it Oak Village?
Oak Village at Falls.
At
New
Falls to
Road, yeah.
continue to December 13th meeting.
Right. We have a
I'll
second?
second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Okay, great. All right, those two matters for tonight's agenda have been continued. If anybody is in attendance for Oak Village, you no longer have to stay. We're not gonna hear anything about it. Maybe next month, I don't know. What do you think, Mr. McGinnis? I think so. Getting close, okay, great. All right, we'll get back on to our regularly scheduled agenda. Okay, petition number 1, Jared Persson? Yep. Great. 400 Alden Avenue, Morrisville, PA 19067, requesting dimensional variance to allow second-story addition to encroach into the 10-foot side yard setback. Sorry, come on up. All right, first thing we're going to do is I'm going to commend you for a very nice put-together packet here. I'm very happy about that. Thank you. We don't see a lot of that.
Diane, help you out a little bit.
Very well bound, thank you. The second thing I'm going to do, I'm going to have you, is this your wife? Or your,
Yep,
okay.
wife.
I'll have you guys both sworn in by our court reporter.
Okay.
We do.
Okay,
Lauren Pearson.
great. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to have a bunch of things put on the record by our solicitor.
Okay.
And then we're going to turn it over to you guys to explain what's going on, okay? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if we can mark the application for zoning ordinance appeal as ZHB1, along with the accompanying packet submitted by the applicant. 2 will be 4 pages containing 4 colored photographs, one of which shows that the property was posted as required. 3 is proof of publication in the Bucks County Courier-Times showing that this matter was published October 26th, and then again November 2nd, 2022. 4 is the applicant and neighbor notification letters as required. Those letters were sent from Falls Township, dated 11/1/2022. That is all the board exhibits, Mr. Chairman. I'm satisfied the appropriate notice have been satisfied. This matter can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Billingmeyer. Mr. and Mrs. Pearson? all yours. What's going on?
Thank you. Okay, so we're here to talk to you guys about our appeal for the zoning ordinance 209-20, or so that's what our architect told us. So hopefully we're good there. And so do you want me to just run through the entire packet or just kind of give you guys?
Just, if you could just
rough.
summarize, kind of what you want to do.
Okay.
Why it's hard to do it within the bounds of what's going on, and why the relief may be appropriate.
Okay.
And that
So
might not be detrimental to anybody's health, welfare. So.
okay, so we're basically 6 months into the process of trying to get this addition off the ground. We've been here now since 2013, I believe, is when we bought, and we kind of knew back then, like, we loved the idea of getting in, making it our own, and we love the neighborhood. And since we've been there, we've done tons of renovations, updates. I mean, we've basically been working on it since we've been there. And now we're at the point where we now have 2 kids. We have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, and quite honestly, sharing a bathroom with them and the smaller amount of space that we have currently, it's not really working out. And so we've looked into moving things, and to me, I want to be able to stay. So we started looking into being able to do the addition that we want to do. If you go ahead and you look at our site plan and you look at, just everything that we saw just from all the surveying that was done, when we went and we looked and just tried to make sense of what would be a nice addition space, which would give us the amount of space we would want upstairs, and then the entertaining space that we would want downstairs, it just, if we don't encroach on the setback, it's really a very, short room. It's way shorter than it is wide, and it just kind of makes it sort of hokey, for lack of a better term. So that's why we applied for this. We had all the numbers drawn up, everything looked at, and one of the things that actually it brought to our attention, if you look at the site plan, on the existing site plan, you will see that our current house, as is, the way it sits and the way we bought it, we actually do have the back corner, which is an existing sunroom on our house. It already is encroaching within that 10-foot, a few feet. Okay, and so if you go to the second drawing, you'll see in the shaded area, that's what we're looking to put in. That would be the full 2 stories. It would come up to about 6.4 feet off of the property line within the 10-foot. And again, that's why we had to come in and try to make the appeal. So again, we're looking to do it the right way. We've done it the right way up to this point. We're looking to do everything we can to make it comfortable so that we can stay long term. And again, we do love the neighborhood. We have testaments from our neighbors. We've grown fond of one that has moved away, another one behind us that we have a lot in common with, kids and all that. And so, we've just gone through so far this much of the due diligence to get us on our way.
Great.
So.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
What I'll do now is I'm going to see if any of the board members have some questions for you about it, okay?
Sure.
Great. Aleni?
It's pretty self-explanatory what they're trying to do, so I have no questions at
Great.
this time.
Al?
No, I have nothing. I see exactly what you want to do.
Sure.
Bill?
No, the presentation covered any questions I would have.
Okay, great. Yeah, you definitely have the house is kind of turned a little bit weird, the lot's
Sure.
a little bit odd. Definitely creates some kind of physical hardships with the land, the way it's situated, and the house the way it's situated currently. So, I definitely see why relief may be necessary there. Any public comments, questions? Anything on Zoom, public comments, questions? Nothing on Zoom? Hey, Matt, anything we received through the township that we should be asking about? Or?
Nothing from the township.
Okay, great. Okay, great. We'll do is now we'll have a vote, okay?
Yep.
Would someone like to make a motion
Yep.
for petition number 1?
I'll make the motion, Dan.
Thanks.
I move that the application of Jared Persson requesting a dimensional variance from section 209-20 in table 1 of the Falls Township zoning ordinance be granted to allow a second-story addition to encroach into the 10-foot side yard setback at the property located at 400 Alden Avenue, Morrisville, PA 19067, as depicted on the plans in accordance with the testimony presented to the zoning hearing board.
We have a second.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay. Al, poll the board?
Laney?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Dan?
Yes. Okay.
Awesome.
Petition's been approved. You'll receive a letter from our solicitor's office, and as always, if you have any questions, you can talk to Diane.
Diane or
Sorry,
Matt? Thank you, guys. Thank you,
Great.
everybody.
Have a great night. Thank you for coming in. No, I don't know. That's weird. Okay, brings us to petition number 2, NP Falls Township Industrial LLC. This was continued from the October 11th meeting, 1 Ben Fairless Drive, Fairless Hills, PA. Requesting a dimensional variance to permit building coverage of 41.21%, where a maximum of 40% is otherwise allowed. Good evening, Mr. McGinnis.
Good evening, Mike McGinnis from Begley Carlin here on behalf of North Point.
Okay. Mr. Billigmeyer?
Thank you.
Oh, you need any of your witness sworn in, Mike?
I have Eric Clace from Gilmore, and Jeremy Michael is remote with us.
Okay, well, let's have, we'll have both those guys sworn in now, and then we'll start marking exhibits for the petition.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Can
I
each,
do.
each one of you state and spell your full name, please?
Yeah, Jeremy.
Jeremy Michael, Jeremy Michael.
Eric Clace, ERIC, CLA, S as in Sam, E.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Thank you.
We'll mark the application for zoning ordinance appeal as ZHB1 along with the accompanying statement. 2 will be notification to applicant's attorney, Mr. McGinnis, providing notice of tonight's meeting. That letter is dated November 1st, 2022. 3 will be 4 pages containing 4 color photographs, one of which shows that the property was posted as required. 4 is proof of publication in the Bucks County Courier-Times, showing that this matter was originally published back on September 27th, and then again October 4th, 2022. 5 will be a site plan for the proposed property. This matter was, if I could just point out, this matter was previously continued on the record, which is why the dates of publication date back to September. Mr. McGinnis, do you have any pre-marked exhibits?
I do not, no,
Okay.
Mr. Bidley-Meyer.
So I will mark, I've been handed by Mr. McGinnis a certification of service. I'll mark that as A1. Mr. McGinnis, all the properties listed have received notice that's contained in your packet.
That is correct, yes.
All right. One moment, Your Honor.
Oh,
Mr.
thank you
Chairman.
so much.
Just have it.
You may proceed.
I think it's a first.
It's like when the kid in school calls a teacher mom or dad, right?
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'm satisfied the appropriate notice have been satisfied. This matter can proceed.
Thank you, Solicitor. Mr. McGinnis.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I'm humbled by you.
As I indicated, we are here tonight on behalf of North Point. This particular lot is relates to what we have labeled as Building 5, and I'll orient the zoning hearing board if any members of the board are not familiar with how this has proceeded historically. In the township, North Point has proceeded in phases, and Building 5 was part of Phase 2 of the development of the KTC, along with proposed Building 4 and Building 6. The Building 5, which is in front of you in the site plan from Gilmore, is not changing in any way. We appeared in front of the supervisors and secured approval for the construction of the site as depicted in the site plan. The building itself is a little over 1 million square feet, 1,035,000 square feet, and there is no additional site work or modification other than what I'm going to get into briefly with the plan. What happened, and this is, I think, fairly simple, but is a bit of a convoluted explanation here, is North Point, as part of their development, has a road network that they are proposing. And the road network, and you can see on this site, we have it listed as driveway A, was considered as part of this parcel for our development approval with the supervisors. When North Point submitted a declaration for recording for the balance of the KTC for the road network, which is necessary for things like maintenance of the road, and Jeremy can get into this, the title company said the listing of driveway A as a limited common element actually removed it from title from this property. And the act of pulling driveway A out of this parcel screwed up our building coverage ratio. It obviously doesn't negatively impact the impervious because it is all impervious. We're removing impervious. But North Point in their design is fairly close to the margins for dimensional requirements. So we were just under the 40% when we came in front of the supervisors. This issue came up with title, and the removal of driveway A pushed us to 41.21%. That means that we need a variance from 20930D, Table 5, to permit 41.21% when 40% is allowed. This is a preemptive measure on our part, and now that this has already occurred, this will be able to be designed through and hopefully not come up as an issue with any of the subsequent phases of the development. But that's an explanation of what happened. As I indicated, everything else with the plan is the exact same. There's no additional site work or modifications. And then I would just request that Jeremy provide a bit further explanation, or in conjunction, hopefully affirm that everything I stated is true and correct. Jeremy, I think you're muted.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Everything that you stated is correct. And first of all, let me apologize for not being there, A, in person, and B, taking this call remotely. This is all kind of an unintended consequence of reporting the park declaration. We need to get in place because we have a couple of the tenants coming online, and we need to get that park association in order to take care of some of the regular maintenance that needs to occur. That being said, the limited common element that was created was kind of intended to be a shared maintenance between the two properties. But in the view of our title company, that's actually kind of changed the title to the park declaration. That being said, as Mike pointed out, the maximum building coverage ratio has been exceeded. So this is really like a preemptive measure for us in case that property were ever to transact or a tenant comes in and they run a PCR on the property. We want to make sure that we don't have any nonconformities moving forward.
And Jeremy, this is something that, for the reasons you stated and what I summarized, we believe we'll be able to proactively address so that it's hopefully not an issue as we move forward with phase 3 and 4 and future phases of the KTC. Is that correct?
Correct. So we're much more obviously aware of the common elements, and those have been now dedicated to the Park Association. We don't anticipate any further limited common elements that would kind of fall into this, but obviously now that we're aware that that's going to affect title on the property, we'll make sure to plan accordingly.
Okay. And no other site modifications or site work other than what's depicted, correct?
That's correct.
All right. I have nothing further for Mr. Michael, and I do have Mr. Clace here if you need to go through anything with the plan.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
McGinnis.
you.
We'll see if anything comes up if we have
Okay.
to ask. That's great. Okay, we'll open it up for some board comments, questions. Al?
No, it's straightforward, exactly what you're saying. I understand.
Okay, Bill?
I have none.
No? Okay, great. Lainey?
I have it.
Yeah, I have no questions either. Any board, public comments, questions? Let the record reflect there was no public comment. Anything via Zoom? Anyone on Zoom for North Point? Nothing on Zoom. Okay, great. Matt, anything I should know about that was received? in written correspondence?
Nothing from the township.
Great, thank you. Mr. McGinnis, anything in closed? No?
That is
Okay.
all, thank you.
You're welcome. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion. I move that the application of NP Falls Township Industrial requesting a dimensional variance from section 209-30D, table 5 of the Falls Township zoning ordinance be granted to permit building coverage of 41.21%, where a maximum of 40% is otherwise allowed at 1 Ben Fairless Drive, Fairless Hills, Pennsylvania, 19030, as depicted on the plans, in accordance with the testimony presented to the zoning hearing board.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second.
Al, poll the board?
Bill?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Laney?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. McGinnis.
Have a great evening.
1 out of 3 ain't bad.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Mr. Place.
Thank you.
Oh, you have service, I'm sorry.
Hi, Michael Mattioni.
Hey. how are you,
I'm,
Mr. Mayor?
I'm well. I'm the attorney for the applicant. I have exhibits. Will you
Oh,
hand
give
them
me,
up?
yeah, just give me 1 second, let me open the petition.
Sure, sure.
And then we can kind of, if he wants to bring it up now, before we get started again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, petition number 5, NSC Pennsylvania LLC, 203 Lincoln Highway, Units 6 and 7, Fairless Hills, PA, zoned highway commercial. Requesting the following, a special exemption to permit the operation of a medical marijuana dispensary in the existing vacant storefront in the shopping center, and a variance because the proposed location is within 1,000 feet of a residentially zoned property. Okay. You have, you want to have your, let's have your
I have 3 witnesses.
witnesses
Mr.
sworn
Chairman.
in group. You don't have anybody via Zoom, do you, sir?
No, I do not.
Okay.
They're all here. Thank you.
I do.
Anthony Marsico, last name is M-A-R-S-I-C-O.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
Do you need to state that
Do you need
again?
Ted Hoza, it's H-O-Z-Z-A.
Peter Angelides, A-N-G-E-L-I-D-E-S.
Mr. Mattoni, thank you. I'll turn it over to Mr. Billingmeyer. Do you have a service in here?
Yeah, it's in there.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Thank you. So he'll start marking the exhibits for petition. We'll turn it over to you guys. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if we can mark the application for zoning ordinance appeal as ZHB 1. 2 will be a letter from Michael, is it Mattoni?
Mattioni.
Mattioni, I'm so sorry.
Mattioni, that's okay.
Mattioni.
Yes.
In regards to this application, that letter's dated October 7, 2022. 3 will be notification to applicant's attorney from Falls Township, giving notice of tonight's meeting. That letter's dated November 1st, 2022. 4 will be 5 pages containing 5 colored photographs, one of which shows the property was posted as required. 5 will be proof of publication in the Bucks County Courier Times, showing this matter was published October 26th and then again November 2nd, 2022. That's all the board exhibits. I've been provided a packet with pre-marked exhibits. And I see number 10 in your pre-marked exhibits is the certificate of mailing.
Yes.
All right. I just have one moment. If I could just ask you, the four addresses and names that appear on the letter under Exhibit 10, they all received this notice of tonight's meeting?
Yes, they did.
Okay. And part of that exhibit is the U.S. Postal Service document.
Yeah. It's a certificate of mailing. Just says the 4 properties that it went to.
Got it, okay. Yes, to confirm, it's a certificate of mailing. It has the 4 lists of properties that are required to receive notice of tonight's meeting. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm satisfied the appropriate notice have been satisfied. This matter can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Billingmeyer. Mr. Mattioni?
Yes,
All yours.
Mr. Chairman, thank
Thank
you. Again, I am Michael Mattioni, and I represent the prospective tenant at this property. It's called Agronomed Biologics LLC. They're a subsidiary of Verano Holdings. Agronomed is seeking a special exception and variance to permit it to operate a medical marijuana dispensary at 203 Lincoln Highway in Fairless Hills. Verano is a publicly traded operator of numerous dispensaries nationwide, and they operate several dispensaries in Pennsylvania. They're a fully integrated cannabis producer and retailer. Agronomed is the assignee of NSE Pennsylvania, the original applicant. NSE Pennsylvania is also a subsidiary of Verano, so it just went from one subsidiary to another as the actual party seeking the relief tonight. And excuse me, I'm a little under the weather. Agronomed seeks relief to be permitted to operate this dispensary at this long vacant site at 203 Lincoln Highway, an existing strip shopping center. Specifically, they're seeking a special exception under 209-23C6 of the zoning code, which permits dispensaries as special exceptions in the highway commercial zoning district, and a variance from section 209-23C6C of the zoning code, which requires dispensaries to be more than 1,000 feet from residentially zoned districts. This site's approximately 700 feet from the nearest residentially zoned districts. There's 2 that are close: neighborhood conservation residential and the manufactured home community zoning districts. Verano conducted a months-long survey for a suitable property for a dispensary location in Bucks County. This led them to this property. They reviewed the zoning. I just want to give a little background. They reviewed the zoning for the property and for Falls Township. The property, again, is in the HC district where medical dispensaries are permitted as special exceptions. Again, we have the issue of being less than 1,000 feet from a residentially zoned district. We're going to present testimony tonight to show that while technically correct, the location of the dispensary, for all practical purposes, is more than 1,000 feet from residentially zoned districts. Pedestrian would have to travel far in excess of 1,000 feet from the residentially zoned districts to get to the dispensary, because there's no direct route from the residentially zoned district. There's no sidewalks on Lincoln Highway, and Lincoln Highway, as you know, is a 4-lane road that separates this, because the residentially zoned districts are on the other side of Lincoln Highway. So you have to cross Lincoln Highway, you have to go down and around to find a traffic light to go across. Then you have to walk down Lincoln Highway, which has no sidewalks. So it's certainly not an inviting place for pedestrians. In addition, as will be explained by Dr. Angelides, there are virtually no other properties in the township where a dispensary could be located. The site in question has been vacant more than 6 years. It's creating a blight on the township, and the dispensary would bring a productive use to the long vacant property. The site in question is ideal for use as a dispensary, as will be explained by the witnesses tonight. The proposed use will bring back into use a property that has been sitting vacant more than 6 years. It will provide for the use of the property in a manner consistent with surrounding uses. The use, a dispensary, a medical marijuana dispensary, will allow township residents seeking medical treatment to find it in the township. Right now, there is nowhere in the township that provides this treatment. You have to go to Bensalem or to Bristol. It will provide for revitalization of this long vacant property in a productive manner for the township. Verano will renovate the interior of the building. They will bring 20 to 30 total jobs to the community with benefits and competitive wages. And the property is part of a strip center. Other tenants in the center include a Sherwin-Williams paint store, a pizzeria, and a vape store. In the area, there are numerous commercial and industrial uses. These include car dealers, rental car agencies, self-storage facilities, auto repair, auto body, and another strip shopping center, and a logistics center at 225 Lincoln Highway, which is basically 2 properties down. There's limited access to this property because left turns from Lincoln Highway to the property and left turns out of the property are prohibited, so it's difficult to get into the center. Again, it's been listed more than 6 years without any takers. There are unique physical circumstances that justify granting the requested variance. The testimony will show that the requested variance, if granted, will allow for the use of the property in a manner consistent with surrounding commercial uses, and that the relief is at least required for the use of the property. Testimony will also be presented showing that the requirements for a special exception to operate the medical marijuana dispensary are met. Verano has all licenses from the Commonwealth to operate a dispensary. They comply with all legal requirements. The proposed use is consistent with the purpose and spirit of the zoning code. The special exception will not injure or detract from neighboring properties and conforms to the character of the community. Articles 5 and 6 of the zoning code, to the extent that they apply, are fully complied with. The special exception will not be detrimental to public health, safety, and welfare, but will provide the public a benefit by providing access to medical treatment that's not presently available to the township. And again, the solicitor and the chairman both noted that I did hand up 13 exhibits. And I want to now call on my first witness, Anthony Marsico, who's from Verano and Agronomed, the applicant.
Hey, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
And who is your employer?
Verano Holdings.
Is that?
Is that good enough?
Yeah, I can hear it, Karen, you can hear it?
Okay. And what's your position there?
I'm Executive Vice President of Retail.
And how long have you been employed by Verano?
7 years.
And who is the final applicant on the application?
Agronomed Biologics, LLC.
And what's the relationship of Verano to the applicant for Agronomed?
Agronomed's a subsidiary. Verano Holdings is the parent company.
And does, excuse me again, Agronomed have a letter of intent authorizing it to lease the property at 203 Lincoln Highway, a copy of which is at Exhibit 2?
Yes, we do.
And did NSE originally file the application for relief to operate the medical dispensary at this property?
Yes.
And that's at Exhibit 1?
Correct.
And did NSE assign its right in the pending application to Agronomed?
Yes.
And are both Agronomed and NSE subsidiaries of Verano?
Yes, they are.
Just briefly explain to the board and the public that might be here what Verano does.
Verano is a vertically integrated cannabis company. We serve both medical and recreational markets across the country, currently operate in 18 states.
And how many dispensaries do you have in Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania, we currently operate 15. We have licenses to open 18, hoping this will be one of those remaining 3.
And just briefly for the board and the public, what type of regulations govern the dispensaries in Pennsylvania?
So we're governed by the Pennsylvania Department of Health, extremely stringent guidelines with respect to security, compliance, inventory tracking, employees, things like that. As I mentioned before, we operate in 18 states. I can say that Pennsylvania is one of the most strict when it comes to regulations.
And if this were granted, would Agronomed be the tenant and operator?
Yes, it would.
And how did you come upon this property at 203 Lincoln Highway?
We have a local broker in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and it was found by Ted Hoza, the broker.
And who is the owner of the property?
Linkway Properties, LLC.
Did you enter into an agreement with the owner?
Yes, we do have an LOI, and we have a lease pending.
Okay. And what due diligence did Verano complete prior to signing the LOI?
So when we site a location, we first look at if is this a good fit for our business model, and then we begin the zoning diligence process, look at setback requirements, sensitive uses, things of that nature.
And is the property in the Highway Commercial District?
Yes, it is.
And in your due diligence, did you find that a medical marijuana dispensary is a permitted use as a special exception in the HC district?
Yes.
And could you turn to Exhibit 3? And what does this show?
This shows the residential area and the distance from the residential area.
And how far is it from the residential area?
Approximately 702 feet.
And is the residential area on the other side of Lincoln Highway?
Yes, it is.
And is there a pedestrian route from the residentially zoned area to the site?
No, no good pedestrian routes, no sidewalks, no crosswalks, nothing of that nature.
And is the site adjacent to a residentially zoned area?
No, it's not.
And what lies between the site and the residentially zoned area?
Lincoln Highway first, as the main arterial. There's an auto dealership, auto repair shop, and several other commercial uses.
And would you just turn to Exhibit 5 and briefly describe to the board what this exhibit shows?
This shows the proposed property along with some of the adjacent businesses, shows the current conditions, shows the hotel next door, things like that.
So it gives a view of basically what surrounds the site.
Correct.
Please turn to Exhibit 6.
Yep, I got
And
it.
what does Exhibit 6 show?
It's a floor plan of the proposed dispensary.
Would you explain how the facility would operate?
So yeah, so when we look at a dispensary, we look at it as a three-pronged approach. So public access, restricted access, and limited access. So when a customer, medical cannabis customer who's been licensed with the state enters our facility through the entrance, they'd be credentialed there and met by one of our badged employees. Their IDs would be checked, which they would need their medical card along with a state or federal issued ID. Once they have shown that, they would be allowed onto our sales floor, which is a limited access area. They'd be greeted by one of our patient care specialists. At that time, we gauge their cannabis knowledge, if they visited before. If they have, it's typically a much quicker process. If they're a new patient, we offer consults and education on their products. It's very, very important for us to make sure that anyone walks into our door is educated before walking out on the products they're going to receive. Once we go through our menu and figure out what's going to be the best regimen for their ailments, they'd head to the sales floor where they would complete the purchase. Once the purchase is completed, we'll make sure that they're clear on the guidelines for transporting cannabis. Our expectation is that they're going to go to their car and head on their way. We have a very strict no loitering process in place, very strict no consumption on site.
And what would the days and hours of operation be?
We'd be open every day. The zoning requires us to be open no longer than 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
And how many total employees would you have?
Total employees, somewhere in 20 to 30 range, full and part-time employees.
And what does product display consist of?
Product displays on our sales floor are just dummy packaging or marketing materials. There's no live product on our floor. That's to prevent any sort of diversion or theft, anything like that. So anything on our sales floor is going to be no live product.
And where is inventory stored?
Inventory, if you look back at the floor plan, is stored in our vault room. The Department of Health requires us to have certain mechanisms in place for that vault room, so obviously that's in accordance with state law.
And who has access to the vault room?
Only badged employees, so all of our employees have to go through state and federal background checks. They have to be badged with the Department of Health.
And will Verano renovate the interior of this facility?
Yeah, the interior improvements, it would be basically a gut. It would be outfitted appropriately to a dispensary, again, in accordance with the state guidelines for what a dispensary needs for access and security.
And does Agronomed, the applicant, have a Department of Health license?
Yes, we do.
And could you turn to Exhibit 8?
Okay.
And is this a copy of the registration of Agronomed to operate with the Department of Health?
Yes, it is.
And if the variance and special exception were to be granted, would Verano and Agronomed operate the site in compliance with the provisions of the zoning code?
Yes, we would.
And is this use consistent with the purpose and spirit of the code?
Yes, it is.
Will this use, if granted, if the relief is granted, will it substantially injure or detract from neighboring properties?
No, and in my experience, it's quite the opposite.
Will the use be contrary to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare?
No, it will not.
And why not?
Well, for one, the medical treatments that we'll bring to the community would be great. There are literally tens of thousands of patients in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. There is not a medical dispensary in this really, I would say, near area. So that's one of the reasons why we are seeking this location.
And is there a security plan in place for this dispensary?
Yes, there is a robust one.
Is a copy provided at Exhibit 7?
Yes, it is.
And does this plan meet the requirements of the Township zoning ordinance?
Yeah, it exceeds it. I would say, just to repeat it again, the Department of Health holds us to very high standards with security and compliance, and the Commonwealth is one of the most stringent guidelines in the country.
And given all the time that you've worked with Verano, have there been any adverse impacts in communities where it operates dispensaries anywhere across the nation?
No.
And again, finally, for the board, why is this an ideal site?
I think first off, located on a main thoroughfare in a commercial district is important for us. Visibility from Lincoln Highway is fairly good. There's signage, there's avid parking, and as I mentioned, it's an underserved area. So I think we're going to be doing the patients of the Commonwealth a service, and I think it's going to be a viable business to really revitalize and anchor that shopping center, which the unit's been vacant for quite some time.
I have no further questions for Mr. Marsico. Do you want to ask questions now, or do you want me to have my other witnesses testify?
Does any board have any questions right now, based on his testimony, before he gets too far ahead?
No.
Thank
No?
I
If we
have a
need-
couple, unless you want to wait until the end.
If the question becomes appropriate, you just grab the witness who you think is most appropriate for the question. That'd be great.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Next witness is Ted Hoza. Again, state your name.
Ted Hoza,
And what's,
Citus Properties,
and what's your profession?
commercial real estate agent.
Is that his exhibits in it? Could you turn to Exhibit 12? Is that a copy of your CV?
Yes.
And is it reasonably accurate in terms of your background and experience?
Yes.
And what licenses do you have?
I have a real estate salesperson license in Pennsylvania and New Jersey.
And your employer's site is properties?
Yes.
And how long have you been an agent?
7 years.
And do you handle sale and leasing of commercial properties?
Yes, we have a focus on Montgomery and Bucks County, but also handle, properties outside of Pennsylvania.
And are you familiar with the property at 203 Lincoln Highway?
Yes.
And is the present zoning there a highway commercial?
Yes.
And would you describe the condition of this center?
It's tired. The facade hasn't been updated in years. The signage is a little tired as well, and the property sits back from Lincoln Highway, so it's tough to see if you're going eastbound on Lincoln Highway.
And what was the use there?
It was a dance studio.
And when was that?
6 years ago.
And has it been vacant since?
Yes.
What are the other uses in the center?
Sherwin-Williams, there's a pizzeria and a vape shop.
And are you familiar with the area surrounding this property?
Yes.
And would you describe that area?
There's a motel directly adjacent, Salvation Army, and then there's a large logistics center with trailer parking about 2 doors down. There's also several car dealers and body shops, generally commercial in nature.
And is this typical commercial, industrial, or lease the property?
There's no left turn into the property, no left turn out from Lincoln Highway. Like I said, the facade's tired, the signage is lacking. The dumpsters for the property, for example, are in the parking lot. Most properties hide those away, and the loading in the rear is a little short for larger retailers.
Is it difficult to see the property?
Yes.
Is there pedestrian access to the property?
No.
Did the conditions you described create a hardship to this property that make it difficult to use for permitted use?
No. Yes, I'm sorry. Long day.
What impact does the surrounding uses have on the desirability of the property for any legally permitted use?
Generally, the location's a little lacking. I mean, you have visibility, you have a lot of parking. So for a dispensary, those are the two keys. I've done about 30 of these across the state. And with the parking, with the size of the store, And, just the fact that it's in a commercial area, it just works out better.
And have you reviewed Exhibit 3?
Yes.
How far is the residentially zoned district from the site?
700 feet.
And is there pedestrian access from the residentially zoned district to the proposed dispensary?
No.
And are there unique physical conditions at the site that make it impossible to utilize the property for a permitted use without the zoning relief?
Yeah, like I said, the facade's tired, the building sets back, there's no left turn in or out. If the property was desirable and was able to be used as a permitted use, it probably would have been leased by now. It's been 6 years.
Given the location of the site across a 4-lane road without sidewalks connecting it to the residentially zoned district, does the more than 700 feet between the site and the residentially zoned district create a greater buffer between the site and basically meet the requirements being 1,000 feet, other than it's just not a straight line?
Yes.
And does it meet the justification in the code for the 1,000-foot buffer?
Yes.
Are there creations creating the need for the variance created by the applicant?
No.
And will the variance, if granted, alter the essential character of the neighborhood?
No.
And why not?
Generally, dispensaries fix up the exterior quite a bit. Interior, it's going to breathe new life into the center, which obviously hasn't been there for 6 years. The tenant mix isn't very strong from a leasing standpoint.
And do dispensaries basically act like pharmacies?
Yes.
And is the variance the minimum variance required for the relief requested?
Yes.
Will it be contrary to the public health, safety, and general welfare?
No.
And why not?
It'll provide patients with access. Otherwise, they have to drive about 15 minutes to Bristol. Not only patients in Falls Township, but surrounding municipalities as well, especially to the north.
And again, looking at the HC zoning district requirements, section 20923C6, that permits dispensaries as special exceptions, correct?
Yes.
And is the requested special exception consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the zoning code?
Yes.
And why is that?
The only requirement it doesn't meet is the setback requirement, but it meets the spirit of that. It's 700 feet, but in order to get to the property, you have to walk to Oxford Valley Road and then up and then back to the property on Lincoln Highway. And there's no sidewalks either.
And will this special exception substantially injure or detract from the use of neighboring properties?
No.
Does the application meet the requirements of Articles 5 and 6 of the code?
Yes.
Is the special exception contrary to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare?
No.
And why not?
It's more beneficial to the community. You have patient access. You have a long-standing vacant property that is being leased to a public company. Otherwise, there hasn't been a use in 6 years.
And as a real estate agent with many years of experience, do you believe the site in question is an appropriate location for a medical marijuana dispensary?
Yes.
And why is that?
It has quite a bit of parking. The other tenants aren't necessarily heavy parking users. And it's more of a conspicuous location because it does set back from Lincoln Highway.
And are your opinions given today to a reasonable degree of professional certainty?
Yes.
I have no further questions for Mr. Hosa. If
Thank
the
you.
board wants me to call the next witness?
Thank you. Yeah, I think that'd be appropriate.
Okay, sure.
Please. Let's just keep going with the testimony and then we'll.
Our last
check
witness is Dr. Angelides.
Hello.
And state your name for the board.
I'm Peter Angelides,
And what's your profession?
president of eConsult Solutions, an economic and planning consulting firm in Philadelphia.
And what do you do?
I'm the president.
And you're a planner?
Yeah, so I'm trained as an urban planner and have the American Institute of Certified Planner certification.
And turn to tab 11 of the exhibits. And is this a copy of your CV?
Yes, it is.
And is it reasonably accurate in terms of your experience?
Yes, it is.
And did you prepare a report which we've attached as Exhibit 9?
I did.
And is the report an accurate summary of the testimony you're presenting tonight?
Yes.
And in preparing the report and preparing for the hearing, did you visit the site at 203 Lincoln Highway?
I did. In fact, I ate dinner there today.
Would you describe the site?
It is a 6-unit retail strip, looking pretty tired. 4 of the stores are occupied, a vape store, Charlie's Pizza Shop, and Sherwin-Williams has 2 spots, and the other 2 on the easternmost end are currently vacant and have been for, as I understand it, about 6 years.
And are those vacant sites where the dispensary is proposed?
Yes.
And you said how long has this been vacant for?
As I understand it, about 6 years.
And is there pedestrian access to this site?
No.
And would you describe the area surrounding the site to the board?
So it's on Lincoln Highway, 4-lane commercial strip, very, very auto-focused. There are no sidewalks. There's really very little, if any, in the way of pedestrian amenities along the corridor. It really is a place to drive to and from. So the uses along the highway on both sides are very auto-focused. They're typically set back from the road. They have parking lots in front of them. There's some retail shops. There are auto dealerships. There's a used store or Mr. Storage place and similar uses, including a small hotel.
And would you turn to Exhibit 3, please? And just describe this to the board.
So Exhibit 3 is an aerial photograph showing the site and the nearest residentially zoned parcel. That shows that they're about 700 feet from corner to corner.
And in having visited the site and looked at the site, is there any safe way to walk from the residentially zoned district to the site?
No.
And did you review the zoning code with regard to the proposed use of the site?
I did.
And is the relief we're seeking tonight necessary for the dispensary to operate?
Yeah, the zoning code requires a 1,000-foot separation from the site to the nearest residentially zoned parcel, and this is only 700 feet, and that is the trigger for the zoning variance request.
Are the characteristics that make the site, are there characteristics that make the site difficult to utilize?
Yes, we've heard testimony earlier tonight, which I'll basically agree with. It's a tired center. It's at the end of a commercial strip and not in the best condition. It is difficult to access, impossible to access by foot, at least impossible safely, and difficult even to access by car. So there are no left turns from Lincoln Highway. I came via the Sesame Place, had to go past the site, turn around, and come back to get to it.
And will the fact that the proposed dispensary is approximately 700 feet from the residentially zoned district have any greater impact on the residentially zoned district than if the site were 1,000 feet as required by the ordinance?
No, not on that district. That district, 700 feet as the crow flies, but I think 2 miles if you wanted to walk from that parcel to the proposed dispensary site. Is very, very, very far away.
Will there be any negative impact on the residentially zoned properties if the dispensary is permitted to open?
No.
And why not?
Well, the dispensary is a use that is conceived of in the zoning code, so it's certainly appropriate for the site, and the regulations surrounding its operation basically restrict it to, selling its goods, and people, they come, they go, and they disappear. It's just a retail use like any other retail use.
And both you and other witnesses have described hardships at this site. Do you believe that as a result of the hardships that have been described, that the property can be used as zoned other than through this application?
Apparently not. If it were to be easily utilized, it would be by now. 6 years is a long time for a property to sit vacant.
And did the applicant create the hardship to the land?
No.
And is the proposed use suitable for the property?
It is. It's specifically conceived of in the zoning code as an appropriate use for the property. And again, the dispensary is just basically a retail store. It's a lot like a Rite Aid or a Walgreens, only without the grocery aspects.
And will the variance, if granted, alter the character of the neighborhood?
No. No, it's just it is a retail store going into a retail strip, so it's completely consistent with the character of the neighborhood.
And will it substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use or development of surrounding properties?
Not at all. Again, it's a retail strip, and that's what should be there.
And if the variance, if granted, would it be detrimental to public welfare?
No, it wouldn't be detrimental. I think it would be helpful. There are several ways in which this is a beneficial application. So it does provide a service that is otherwise not present in the in Falls. It provides basically access to medical treatments that otherwise are not available. Second, the tenant would come in and fix the place up, which is what one would have to do. And so there would be investment in the space that otherwise wouldn't happen. That investment makes the place look better and function better. There would be employment and the tax revenue that goes with employment that's beneficial to the township and the taxpayers of the township. And finally, the neighboring pizza store would probably be very happy, as other uses benefit from foot traffic. So shopping centers exist because there are uses that go together sometimes, and I think this would go together nicely.
And is the variance, the minimum variance required?
Yes, this is just a use variance, nothing special.
And in your report, did you review the zoning map for the township?
I did.
And did you have a report, in your report, did you review this?
Yes.
And please explain your review to the board.
So on my figure 7 on page 13 of my report,
And that's Exhibit 9.
Exhibit 9, thank you. I asked the question, okay, well, so the zoning code says you have to be 1,000 feet away from a residentially zoned parcel. So how many parcels are there in Falls Township that actually satisfy that criteria? In other words, how many parcels would you not need a variance for? And the answer is not very many. Okay, and so first of all, the only place where this is allowed is HC. There's no other zoning designation that permits a dispensary. So in the HC zones, so you have to be in an HC zone and you have to be more than 1,000 feet away from a residentially zoned parcel. On the map, those things are indicated in green. So there are only 3 spots in the map. One to the extreme northeast, basically in the middle of a highway interchange, there is a HC zoned parcel that is more than 1,000 feet away from a residentially zoned parcel in Falls. However, it's right across the street from residentially zoned parcels in Morrisville, so not really 1,000 feet away. The only other 2 spots, one is just down the street from 203 Lincoln Highway, set back from the road. So the road that it's on is not Lincoln Highway, but it's a road parallel to it, basically a service road, 100-something feet back. So terrible commercial space. You can't even see it from the easily from the highway. And the third place where the dispensary would be allowed as of right, or at least 1,000 feet, is right across the street from Sesame Place.
And did you review the requirements for a special exception in the township zoning code?
Yes, yes I did.
And is the proposed use consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the code?
It is.
And why is that?
So again, this is specifically identified as a permitted use with a special exception. So the special exception lists some criteria for extra things you need to check off, and the proposed use does all that.
And will the proposed use substantially injure or detract from surrounding properties?
No.
And does the use comply with Articles 5 and 6 of the zoning code?
It does.
And will the special exception be contrary to public health, safety, morals, or general welfare?
No, as just mentioned in the variance section, it really I think will help as well.
And is the property a proper location for the proposed use?
It's an excellent location.
And given the configuration of the property, does the proposal make sensible use of the land?
Yes, this is a very sensible and appropriate use of that parcel.
And are your opinions given today to a reasonable degree of professional certainty?
They are.
I have no further questions, and I have no further witnesses, Mr. Solicitor, Mr. Chairman.
Great, thank you. So we'll open it up now for some board questions.
Sure.
And you could kind of cycle through your witnesses to find
Yes.
the most appropriate answer. Oh. I got tired of listening to myself breathe. Like I said, we'll open it up for some board questions now. You can find your witness who is most appropriate to answer the question, unless somebody wants to specifically ask someone if they remember, okay? Al?
Yeah, now what was... Thank you. So what was this space that you're gonna rent? What was it prior? Was it the dance studio that I'm seeing on the sign, or?
Yeah.
And how long was,
Oh, he has to be on mic, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll give the.
I'm coming, I'm on my way. Yeah,
how
so-
long was the dance
State
studio
your
there?
name, state your name.
Ted Hoza. I'm not sure how long it was there. I know it hasn't been there for about 6 years.
And it's been empty for 6 years?
Yeah.
And that's your hardship that you're seeking since you can't rent it? That's?
Yeah,
what's your
it's
hardship here?
been unable to be leased.
Now, my question also is, you're saying a residential property, but I'm looking at the map on Google, and I don't know what this house is zoned, but there's a house right next door, 100 feet from you.
There is a house next door, but the code says residentially zoned district, and we're 700 feet from residentially zoned district. I assume that that's a legal nonconforming use if it is in fact a residence. I don't know that it's a residence. It looks like a residence, but across the street, there's also a house that looks like a residence that hosts Enterprise Rent-A-Car. So while we might have a residence next to us, the code says it's 1,000 feet from a residentially zoned district, not a residence. And, you know, we're following what the code says.
Okay. I don't know much about this, so how does the patient come in? What do they need to get product, and what's the?
State your name.
Anthony Marsico. So the first thing that has to happen is they have to be a registered patient through the Pennsylvania Department of Health. So they need a doctor's certification stating that they are, they have one of the qualifying conditions under the requirements. They would submit that along with all their personal information. They'd be granted their medical card. Once that happens, they come into our store. They present their medical card along with a state or federal issued ID that's valid. And for a first-time patient, they would walk into our store. They're going to be greeted by first our reception staff, where they would be credentialed, and then a patient care specialist. Patient care specialist is going to work with a first-time patient. We'll do a first-time consultation, go through the rules and regs of the program, gauge their cannabis knowledge. We have all walks of people who, go ahead.
Okay. I understand. You
Sorry.
talked about that earlier. I understand that end of it. But what's the medical card look like?
It's just basically like an ID card.
Just an ID
Yep.
card with no ID on it? No picture on it?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay.
Yep.
So they can be made?
I mean,
Anything, right? A medical card. I can get a medical card, and we can make medical cards.
you're going to be.
It can be done, right?
The issue is, though, you're going to have to be in the registry. So we have a state-tracked inventory system where you're going to have to be in the medical registry. So it's cross-referenced there. They have access to our cameras. They have access to our inventory at all times.
Okay.
It's to track medical purchases. There's limits on how much you can purchase.
Okay.
And, yeah.
So if I come to your place and I get a 2 weeks worth or whatever.
Yep.
And I get it done in 3 days.
Yep. You would not be able to come in until your allotment is reset.
Okay, and is your computer in line with all the other dispensaries? How does that work?
Correct. There's a registry. So it's
Okay.
tied to your medical number.
Okay.
I believe that's with the Department of Health in
Correct.
Harrisburg.
Correct.
Okay, and this is paid through insurance? I mean,
No.
insurance pay for this?
No, it does not.
So they need cash?
Correct.
Okay. So they need cash, they need credit cards to be able to get this?
So credit cards aren't typically used in our industry, but we do have a PIN debit system.
Okay. And what do you guys do with product when it goes bad? Where do you guys dispense it at?
So there's a destruction protocol. Again, that's through the Department of Health. It has to happen and be documented. It has to be in camera view at a certain camera, a certain time. Basically, what we do is if product's damaged or expired, we compost it. So we use either soil or kitty litter, things like that, and it has to be bleached and things like that, and it's disposed in the regular garbage. It's a very rare occasion, and there would never be products sitting in our garbage that someone could potentially use.
Okay, that's all I have for right now. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Al. Great, thanks, Al. Bill, questions?
Yes, you keep on testifying about it's been vacant for 6 years, but then you also testify that it's a tired building, so don't you feel if the owner upkept that building, it could have been used for something else and it wouldn't be a hardship?
Ted Hoza. If the owner renovated the property, it still wouldn't take away from the access issues, visibility issues, and the location of the property related to the Oxford Valley Mall. Most retailers want to be closer to the Oxford Valley Mall, as you can imagine, because of the traffic coming off of that. This is on the outskirts. This is probably on the edge of the retail corridor.
Well, I know where it's at. I'm just saying that you know, the testimony, we used the word tired describing the building. I mean, that should be part of the appeal of the building, keeping it up to date. All right, my next question is, patient care specialist, what's their qualifications?
This is Anthony Marsico. So all of our employees have to go through a state and federal background check. They are issued a badge similar to the customers, the patients. We go through a training process. So we train all of our employees on first product knowledge to make sure that they are giving our customers the proper product knowledge. The last thing we want is anyone to leave with product not knowing how to use it, not knowing how to dose it. Also going to be trained on all of our security procedures and compliance procedures. They also need to be able to tell our customers what are the rules and regs for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, how they can and cannot transport cannabis, where they can consume cannabis and cannabis byproducts. So a lot of that training. Also go through a training on emergency preparedness, medical emergencies, things like that. Our facility is outfitted with a robust security system, 24/7 cameras that have the ability to operate in the event of a power outage, battery backups, motion sensors, glass breaks, panic buttons. It is a very sophisticated operation.
I was specifically talking about your care specialist that they come in and have counsel with. Are there any medical backgrounds in them, like nurses, doctors, or anything?
We do get those sorts. Yeah, we do get those sorts of backgrounds from time to time, but it's not a prerequisite. No.
All right, so none of that. All right, then another issue is 1,000 feet is 1,000 feet. There's not going to be anybody that's going to walk down to the light for a crosswalk to walk back to your store. They're going to walk across the street. Just because it's Route 1 and there's no sidewalk doesn't mean that they're going to be walking. I think that you're going to invite more walking up and down that corridor because, you know, they're coming from places they don't have vehicles or whatever. They're going to be walking there.
I'll just touch on it quickly. This is Anthony again. You know, I would say dispensaries are overwhelmingly a destination for visits. So we very rarely are an impulse buy. Most of the folks who are coming to us have seeked us out online through the registry or through Google. It's very rare that someone is just going to be passing by or walking by. But I'll let Dr. Angelides speak a little bit.
Further.
Line is that you're saying that they won't be walking there. I mean, in this area, you know, and the housing, the manufactured homes back there, they're going to be walking. I mean, I live here. And I don't agree.
Peter Angelides. The 700-foot bird's flight distance, the walking distance for that is more than 2 miles. So, well, that's well in excess of 1,000.
Based on what?
Google Maps. So that's I put that in my report. There's a map that shows the walking distance.
Using a sidewalk, or are you going down to a crossing?
Just going down the road without a sidewalk, which is, you know, doesn't seem very safe. The closest residential zone parcel is about 1,000 feet away, walking distance, down Lincoln Highway. But again, it's 1,000 feet, and there are no sidewalks, there are no pedestrian crossing amenities. So I wouldn't expect pedestrian access. Is it possible? Sure. Might it happen once in a blue moon? Yes. But I would expect almost everybody who goes there would go by car.
But you don't think you're inviting the people that just want to come and get that product won't walk there? You're assuming they're not going to.
Well, I'm not saying that no one ever will. I'm saying it's not very safe, and most of the customers will be coming from more than 1,000 feet. I mean, again, it's the only one in the township, so most of the customers, couldn't practically walk there.
All right, and then I have the other question on the no left turn. I know that area, and you think a sign's gonna stop them from making a left turn? I mean, as part of your, argument, there's no left turn signs. You think that's gonna deter people from doing that?
Some will obey the law, and maybe some won't. It doesn't seem very safe to make the left turn there. I know I didn't feel comfortable doing it. Even if I were inclined not to follow the rules, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it.
I just think that this type of business is going to attract more violations because of the type of business it is. We're going to have more left turns, and we're going to have more walking people down a 4-lane highway. That's all I have for right now.
Thanks, Bill. Laney?
How many people are allowed in this store at one time?
Anthony Marcico. We typically don't like to have more than 2 customers for every patient care specialist. We're not going to know that, though, until we get our CO and go through the fire department and see what our occupancy is. So it would be dependent on that as well.
Okay, so people who are waiting are just gonna be waiting outside?
No, they'd be waiting. So we have queuing areas first in our reception area, and also have the potential on our sales floor to have, again, it's going to depend on occupancy. But no, we wouldn't expect queuing outside the store, things like that.
Do you want to explain on Exhibit 6 what you mean?
Yeah, and again, if you look at Exhibit 6 in our floor plan, again, depending on our occupancy, we could put up stanchions, we could have waiting areas, and we'll always have patient care specialists on our sales floor. So they're not just going to be waiting behind the counters. And again, this is to greet our customers, gauge their cannabis knowledge, find out who needs a little bit more help. Most of our return customers are going to be reserving their products through our online ordering system. And they would just be walking in, picking up their order, paying for it, and leaving. So it really depends on how often they've been to the store, if they've been there before. But our typical return customers, in and out in less than 5 minutes.
Okay. And what type of products will you be dispensing from your dispensary?
Yeah, so all the products that are in our store have to come from a state licensed cultivation or processing center from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So there's no out-of-state product. The way product is delivered is it is manifested from one of those licensed cultivation centers. It's approved by the Department of Health for delivery. Cultivation center or processing facility delivers it to us. We then accept that manifest through the state inventory tracking system. All of those products then come into our inventory. Types of products are flower, smokable flower, vapes, topicals, lotions, balms, edibles, things of that nature. And again, all of these products have unique barcodes. They're in our inventory system, which is tracked by the state or by the Commonwealth. And there's really not a way for diversion or anything like that.
And when do your delivery trucks come?
They're actually very random. So delivery trucks aren't allowed to give us an exact time when they'll be there, again, to avoid diversion, things like that. So they'll give us a window. I expect that we have anywhere between 6 and 10 deliveries a week, so it's not often. Cultivators will deliver to us probably no more than once a week, and some of them, will come once every other week or once every third week, things like that. Depends on inventory constraints.
And the delivery would happen behind the building?
In the rear, correct.
And there's enough room for you to bring trucks
Yep.
and stuff in there?
Yep. Yeah, they're not like semi-trucks or anything like that. Most of the cultivators use outfitted Sprinter vans with different security protocols within that van. Again, in compliance with the DOH.
Are there security personnel with the delivery vans?
It depends on the cultivators. So cultivators have to have 2 drivers. Some have security guards, some don't.
And do you have actual security guards in your facility?
We don't, but we do, and it really is store dependent. So the guidelines don't require us to have them. So we don't have plans for them.
Another concern that I have is the hotel that's close proximity to you. That hotel does act like a home for some people, so residency is there actually, and they can get there by foot. So that's the concern of mine. Easy access. There could be somebody living there that does have a medical marijuana card and can get the product or get it for other people. So that's a concern of mine. I'm more concerned about the safety and the security of the product and how you handle the people going in and out. I understand that you anticipate everybody to come by car, which is fine. You say you have about 2 customers in at a time, so I'm assuming that people come in, you have some in the reception area, some in the consult area, some on the sales floor.
Exactly.
So that's more than 2 people, right?
No, 2 per patient care specialist.
And how many patient care specialists do you anticipate to have at this location?
At any given time, I'd say 10 to 15, total 20 to 30. But it really depends on retail hours. So our peak times are, we follow traditional retail. Friday at 5 o'clock is going to be busier than Tuesday at 11 a.m. So we staff appropriately. And again, a lot of what I'm telling you, and I understand the concerns. I know that this is a new business, so totally understand this. Heard many of these questions before. We currently operate 15 dispensaries in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. These are going up all over the state if you're following it. So a lot of what I'm telling you is not guesswork. It's been tried here, and we operate over 100 dispensaries nationwide, and I can tell you overwhelmingly, the concern is that there's going to be all sorts of crimes surrounding this business, and it is quite the opposite. We are a presence. Our building will be well lit. So when we talk about improvements, it'll be not only the interior, but the exterior. There is cameras every square inch of the interior of the facility with the exception of the restrooms. All of the interior and exterior doors are heavily surveilled. It is a presence when a dispensary comes to town. It's quite the opposite of a lot of the concerns that are totally understandable with being a new business.
Would you limit the products that are available at this dispensary? I know some of them limit them to just the flowers and the tinctures and some of the lotions. They don't have the edibles in this area. Would you do the same, or would you have like a smorgasbord?
I don't know if I would call it a smorgasbord. Again, all the products have to be allowed by the Department of Health. So whatever products are allowed, we want to offer a wide variety to our patients. And the reasons are numerous. We see a lot of different types of patients. So some patients may not be able to smoke or inhale, so they prefer an edible over that. We have first-time users who are very nervous. We have terminally ill patients who are turning to cannabis as a last resort to try and improve their quality of life, or in some cases save their life. So we want to make sure that we have a wide variety of products to satisfy the wide variety of qualifying conditions.
And the other tenants in the shopping center, they're okay with you moving into their shopping center?
Yeah, in our conversations with the landlord, again, it's not a lively shopping center. So in our experience and what we've communicated to the landlord and his communications was that there aren't any objections and there's no restrictive covenants around this type of business, is that we're welcomed. We typically inhibit the surrounding businesses because we are a destination, and that shopping center is going to get potentially crossover business from our business that they wouldn't normally get. So I think most businesses welcome us in our experience.
I have no other further questions.
Okay, great. I did have one question for Matt. Matt, do we know if the property adjacent to the shopping center is a residence or is it a commercial business?
I was looking into the file while you guys were asking questions.
Thank you.
It does appear, we have issued commercial building permits for that property.
Okay, great, thank you. That was just one of the questions.
Understood.
Also, what's that? I'm sorry, is that you?
That was me. I
Mr.
said
Manning?
understood, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then there's just another question too, just, you know, on the general impact of the clients coming in and out of the business. Would you say it would be consistent with that of like a dance studio having classes at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock with 15, 20 parents coming in every hour picking up kids, or less of an impact?
I would say similar impact. I don't know a dance studio's business model exactly, but
Oh, I do. It's
similar to
I would hope it'd be less cars.
yeah, similar to a fast casual restaurant. So I think in a medical market, we can maybe expect somewhere between 20 and 40 trips an hour.
Okay.
We didn't do a traffic study, but I have a lot of experience doing this in all sorts of markets, and we have experience in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I believe there's around 100 dispensaries in the Commonwealth, so it's not like some of the markets where you see where there are lines wrapped around the building, just the business model isn't there. There's enough dispensaries to satisfy the demand. We like this area because it's a bit underserved versus some other parts of the Commonwealth are very overserved and very concentrated with dispensaries.
Right, so you'd say it would be consistent with what Uncle Charlie's might have, you know,
Sure.
during lunch and
Sure,
dinner.
exactly.
Obviously, people probably coming in during their break times when they can and things
Exactly
of that
right.
nature
Exactly
during
right.
the day. Mr. Ted, do you know, would someone be able to get a liquor license and put a bar in this location without variance?
Ted Hoza, I'm not sure with the zoning
Ted
code.
Yeah.
But, you know, you would imagine that the state would grant it, because that's also.
Possibly, right?
Yeah.
Permitted use within the township. Because there's a bar right across the street from there with, you know, people can make left turns out of there, and they're actually using the product consistently within the bounds of that business. And we don't typically worry, you know, people have to make good decisions with driving, things of that nature. I see we have someone from the public. Mr. Patel, how are you?
Yeah, good.
Well, we're going to have to do this on the book here. I'll have to have you come up. You'll be sworn in by our court reporter. You'll give your whole name on the record, and then you can say whatever you like, and you can ask questions and talk to everybody, okay? So you'll be sworn in first. Ready?
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you state your name for the record and spell it.
My name is Bailal Patel, owner of New Pulse Motel.
You have to spell your name.
Bailal, Bailal. That's my first name, and last name Patel, Patel.
Thank you, sir. And yeah, you own the motel.
What is it?
You own the motel, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
My question is that 700-foot distance, you know, we talk about the public or residents. Actually, it is I have a lot of clients, you know, they are living as a weekly basis, you know. So there are about out of 25 rooms, sometime I had a 10 or 12 rooms are rented weekly, you know. So there are people living, some people living with either 2 person, or sometimes they live with the 3 people, you know, like with one child or anything like that. That's one thing is there. So there are a lot of residents over there, you know. The residential area, the question of 700 foot is not right. They are next door within 50 foot. And also across is less distance than 700 foot, you know. There is a whole lot of manufactured homes there, you know. A lot of people are there. And second thing is that there is a walking stripe, a walking traffic over there, you know. People, always I seen going across, running across, going to the next door, the Goodwill store, or go to the pizza store, or wherever it is. So there is a transient running on the road, you know. Across the bar and the restaurant is also coming over there.
Mhm.
And the traffic is late night too, you know.
Absolutely.
That's one thing is that. Second thing is that I just came to know the curiosity of this situation, you know, is that what kind of dispensaries are. Here they indicates that they works on some kind of prescriptions, you know, they're bringing in, and they're taking in, and whatever they entertain, the receptionist, they take care of all their statements, you know, or their card. First of all, there is no security or proper card system, you know, or identification system could be a problem too, which is their concern. But my concern is that certain things is not appropriate, you know. I don't know whether it's without the medical expert, you know, on the premises. I don't know how the things can continue, you know. or what could be a end result of that,
Okay,
So there are a lot of public concerns like this,
understood.
And people will be running in and out, I know that right now it's very hard to control. Many times I also have to call the police because they're running through the property, off and on, So there is not kind of this location they consider to be a secure location for specific purpose, of the specific people coming there. That's my concern.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anthony, Mr. Patel maybe brings up a good point. There's, things happening in the world today. I guess it would be appropriate that you would add some kind of security guard to secure front of building. That would be something that would be possible for you, right?
Absolutely, we'd be open to working with the community. Obviously, that's a big part of what we do. So like the next steps, if we were to get approval, we would have conversations with local police, first responders. We always let them become aware of our security protocols, talk about our security procedures. We expect that they know the community better than we do, and if there's some specific concerns that they'd like us to address, we always do that, and that's an ongoing conversation. If there were some specific asks from the township, we're happy to appease those. And I hear about the walking traffic and a lot of these things. It sounds like there's several businesses that potentially have people walking back and forth. And again, I think most of the businesses in the area are potentially more impulse, whether it's a pizza or a bar or some other sort of retail store. Whereas I would say we are overwhelmingly a destination. There's a specific person who has to have a specific credential to come in our store. So the average person driving by or walking by can't just walk in our store unless they're a medical patient. So I would say it would be much, much less, as Mr. Angelotti's put it, once in a blue moon, if ever, someone just walking into our store from a surrounding area.
Okay, what about just walk us through this, the lack of medical professional inside the building? Now, you have consultants who are trained
Correct.
to consult, things of that, but you have no staffed doctor on premises?
Not on site. We have several of those types of people within our organization. So when we train our staff, especially our upper level management within that store, we're going to go through what types of products are best for specific conditions. And again, these are recommendations. We're not medical professionals. We're not giving a prescription. We're giving recommendations to look for a regimen that is going to help with the ailments for the specific qualifying condition.
Okay, got it, understood. So I don't have a medical card. I see this out there. I go, oh, it's legal in Pennsylvania now. I can go in there and I can buy marijuana or whatever you sell it as, weed.
Yep.
I walk in. Someone greets me there in the beginning, and they say, "Oh, well, you're here," and I say, "I'd like to buy some marijuana."
Yep.
And they're like, "Well, do you have a medical card?" I'm like, "Well, no."
Correct.
But I got a couple $100. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
They're turned away in turn, right?
They would turn away, or we would explain to them what the medical program is. Perhaps they do have a qualifying condition. We have lists of doctors that we work with that they go through a qualification process, and if not, obviously, it's a medical-only store.
Now, you don't issue medical cards there.
No.
So there'd be no way for me to walk in there, get a medical card, and then leave with any kind of product?
No.
In the same trip?
No, it's a
Okay.
process. You have to get a doctor's certification. You have to submit that to the DOH along with your personal information, and then you have to be approved.
Have you found over the time with the other stores you run in Pennsylvania that there's any issues with people wanting to get product and not having a card and being belligerent, I guess, or any? Have there been any issues you would think that we would know about?
I mean, I actually remember recently there was a municipality who asked us to provide a log of calls to service from all of our dispensaries. And again, we currently operate 119 dispensaries in 18 states. And I think over the last 2 years, we had 4 calls to service. And none of them are talking about kind of what you're talking about. Overwhelmingly, I think they were PTSD patients who from time to time have some issues depending on what's going on with the store. And our employees are, again, trained on how to deal with those situations And in the event we're not able to handle those, we're not going to intervene, that's when we would call the police. So those were self-reported.
So 4.
Yeah,
I think Wawa probably had 4
Yeah.
last week.
yeah,
Okay. They only sell sandwiches.
yep.
Okay, any further questions in light of any other testimony? Yeah, please.
Yeah, I
Things
do.
have evolved, so we might
Sure.
cycle back
Of
through the board
course.
if you don't mind.
You made a comment and a light bulb came off. So let's say Dan comes in, says $200, and you say, no, you need a medical card. And you just said that, oh, I could recommend a doctor for you to go to get that medical card.
I started with listing the qualifying conditions and see if they fit one of those qualifying conditions.
I got chronic back pains, I got headaches all
Correct.
the time.
Yep.
Okay, that's it. Oh, yep, that qualifies you.
Yep.
Here's doctor so-and-so.
Yeah, if you don't have a doctor, we have some that we could,
You
yep.
get a doctor.
Sure.
And I get an appointment.
Yep.
How quick of a turnaround time before I get a card?
It depends on the DOH again, and it's random. It could be within a week, it could be a bit longer. Yep.
A week.
Yep.
So, and it's pretty easy to get these cards.
I mean, if you have a qualifying condition, you're
Sure.
able to, yep.
And it's easy to cheat it.
Easy to cheat it?
Yeah, sure.
I'm
I mean,
not a
how
doctor,
much
so.
how much background or how much investigation from the doctor are they doing?
I'm not a doctor, so I can't say, but that would be definitely against the law.
Okay.
If someone was cheating the system.
So it sounds
yeah.
like it could be pretty easy to get a card.
I don't think they could speak for a doctor. A doctor's a doctor. They have license. They have their own.
mean,
It's no
ask you
different
this.
than any other professional. You know, we're not going to do something that's going
How
to
many
risk our
people-
profession.
How many times when you gave that guy, the doctor, to go get a card, has he come back with that card? A week later, 2 weeks later?
You know what? Not as often as you may think. A lot of people are interested in the program and don't fit the bill. So,
Okay, that's all I have.
Great.
And,
Yeah,
one more, I'm
I
sorry,
have
one more.
another question.
Bill, I do have
Oh,
something
Bill,
else I meant to
sorry,
say.
I'll-
The vape shop next, there's a vape shop in the shopping center?
There
4
is.
doors down, yep.
4 doors down. And is it a vape room or they just sell bongs and
Correct.
pens and stuff?
Correct,
Do
mostly
they have
accessories.
couches in there where they could smoke it?
I've not actually been inside the store, just from the outside. So to my knowledge, there's not consumption
I'm
inside.
guessing that would be the next step, because they're gonna go to your place and then they can go right there and smoke it. Now, the gummies or whatever you're gonna be selling,
Yep.
you give a pack of gummies, how quick of a high do they get off a gummy?
Typical for edibles are a much longer rate to kick in than, let's just say, smoking traditionally, 30 to 40 minutes to kick in.
Okay. All right, that's it. That's all I got.
All right, Bill?
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, touching on the medical cards, I mean, in our area, on the radio and everything, it's being advertised that, you call this 800 number, we can get you a medical card right away. So they're like prescribing medical cards, and mail it to them. They don't even see a doctor. So, claiming that this medical card, that you're testifying these poor patients with cancer and this and that. It's you can't really say that all your patients have cancer or PTSD, because there is a lot of, I believe, fraud out there that, especially with their advertising on radio, that you just have to call a number and you get your card right away.
Yeah, I think what you're referring to, those folks are helping with the application process. So they're not going to give them a certification. You have to have a doctor's certification. Am I going to sit here and say that no one ever in the history of the program has ever cheated the system? Quite possible. I'm sure that folks also go to the doctor and get a pain prescription when maybe they're not valid to do so. Again, we leave that with the doctor. If they come in with their medical card that has been issued by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, it's our duty and obligation to serve that patient.
All right, and then one more thing, going back to the person that testified, they're cutting through his property to get to these other stores. So that just shoots down that they're walking 2 miles and cutting right through the property, and there's not a sidewalk there. So they're well within 1,000 feet of coming back there to your establishment. You're still.
That's really addressing a different issue.
Yeah, and I think the point that we're trying to make with the residential variance is that unless you're cutting through yards or have the ability to fly as the crow flies, that as the crow flies, we're 702 feet away from the nearest residential zone. But in reality, if you're going to travel through a reasonable path, it is much larger than that. So I think the spirit of the code is saying that you need to be 1,000 feet from residential, but we're in a heavily commercial district. There's several commercial businesses, yards, and maybe areas that are not even able to be walked through. And if folks from that residential area, which we're seeking the variance from, were going to walk, which I would say is extremely highly unlikely, but possible, they wouldn't be cutting through a bunch of yards and through other people's property and crossing the road through the busy area, jaywalking, and getting to our facility. Am I saying it's impossible? Of course, it's possible, but extremely, extremely unlikely if someone were to walk, and I think the spirit of the code, to make several turns, as Dr. Angelotti's testified, in excess of 2 miles if you were going to walk about established roads.
All right, he testified that on measurements and stuff, but we just had a neighbor of that store testify that they're cutting through his property, so that's the reality of it. Well, I'm not talking about, as a bird flies or, go down to the corner and cross legally and stuff. The reality of it, people are cutting through his property, go to the pizza shop there now, so they are.
Yeah, potentially from the motel next door, if those folks are wanting to get a slice of pizza or want to go to the bar across the street, they very likely may be walking, but from the residential zone that we're seeking a variance from, we would call that extremely, extremely highly unlikely, and we'd say the motel is in the commercial zone.
I just don't see any documentation that's going to happen. That's all I have.
Okay, Bill, lady, any questions? No?
No, that's fine.
Any other public comments, questions, ma'am? No. Oh, okay, no problem. Just wanted to make sure you're included if you wanted to be. Thank you. Okay. So we're only seeking relief, obviously, from what is the closest residential, which is the NCR. How close are we to the manufactured home? Because obviously that's falling outside of the scope of residential area, right? Because it's a manufactured home development.
But it's at least 700 feet from there as well, if you look on the map. It's at least 700 feet down Lincoln Highway.
Yeah.
I did that measurement as well.
Yeah, I don't think you're incorrect in saying that. It's probably within that distance, and thank you for that. Is there any Zoom comments? Nothing on Zoom. And Matt, did we receive anything from the township?
Nothing from the township.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Angelotti's pointed out to me, to the manufactured home thing, he measured it. It is 1,000 feet.
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
So.
It was brought up a couple times. I just wanted to make sure we went through that too, just to point
Correct.
it out.
Now, you measured it from the corner of the parking lot of the property to the entrance to Breezy Point? Come on, Google Maps, it's 837 feet.
It is Google Maps, yeah. It's not from the corner, it's from sort of the middle of the road, middle of Lincoln Highway to right in front of the first house, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, but I still think that the ordinance says 1,000 feet. 1,000 feet's 1,000 feet, not, let's go down this way, hang a right, hang a left, or let's go down to the crosswalk. That's not how people go. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's just not how it happens. They're going to take the shortest route possible to get to their destination. And they're within 1,000 feet, as everybody testified. There's 700 feet from this property.
But the 700 feet would require you to walk through buildings. It's a direct straight line. Even if you try to walk that sort of straight line, you still have buildings you'd have to walk around. You have at least 3 buildings you'd have to walk around. So it could very well still be 1,000 feet. We didn't measure jogging around each of the buildings. This is a straight line that goes through the buildings. So, even if you were to trespass and walk through these other properties, you still might very well be 1,000 feet.
I have no more.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
You guys want to take it as an example? Okay. we're gonna take a quick executive session, all right? Then we'll come back out, and if we have any more questions, we'll hit that. Thanks, guys. Oh, I'm sorry, waiting for everybody else to get in, I'm sorry. So off the record. Yep, just let me know when we're good. Okay, great. Back on the record here now, just wanted to,
We just gotta get Bill back up via Zoom.
okay, great. Let the record reflect that we took a special executive session to discuss the ordinance for special exceptions in the township, just to make sure we were clear on those rules and ordinance. Okay, thank you. Were there any further questions from the board at this point? No? Then no other public comments or anybody else? Okay. Yeah, Matt, you had nothing else to add from your perspective from the township?
No, nothing further from the township.
Okay. Mr. Mattioni, anything in close or thing you'd like to
Just-
add?
Just briefly, I believe we presented extensive testimony that shows both the entitlement to the requested variance and the requested special exception, both expert and from the tenant of the property. So we believe we've met the standard and the relief should be granted. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mattioni. Thank you to witnesses too for the testimony. At this point, I will ask the board if someone would like to make a motion.
I'll make the motion, Dan. I move that the application of NSE Pennsylvania LLC be denied.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Al, poll the board. So we are a motion to deny, so an affirmative vote is to deny.
Bill?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Lenny?
No.
Dan?
No. So the motion has been denied as the fact of the tie in the board. So you'll receive a letter from our solicitor's office.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mattioni. Thank you, everyone. We don't have anything other business.
No, I just wanted to just include those letters that. Your letters.
Hit it again. Hit it again.
The letters we got from McGinnis, because he granted us waivers. I said to that earlier, but I just wanted to just include that, make it part of the record of those job which that we reviewed.
Okay.
I'll just do it on the record real quick.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, if we could just please, just one more thing on the record. If we can incorporate the letters from Mr. McGinnis in regards to his continuance requests dealing with Britton Realty and also Oak Village. He sent separate letters requesting a continuance, also granting the township an extension to hear this matter under the MPC and/or Falls Code. So I'd like to make his letter as part of the record on each of those respective applications. Thank you.
Okay, so admitted. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn? Do
Make the motion.
we have a second?
Second.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.